Days 8 and 9, North Carolina. So I drove through downtowns of Winston-Salem and Raleigh, and I liked both a lot, so I'm definitely gonna be back. And my full-fledged stop of the day was first in the little town of Wilson that has the world's largest collection of whirligigs, these funky constructions that move with the wind. All of them were built by a local resident named Wallace Simpson as a hobby, and they first stood on his farm out of town, and as they gained popularity, people flocked from all over to see them. So eventually they were relocated to a park in the middle of downtown Wilson to try to revive the city, and it really succeeded. So it was really interesting to see those things, plus it was a windy day and they really moved a lot. Cool. And then through the cotton fields of North Carolina to my next stop, a tiny town of Goldsboro, above which in 1961 a plane from a nearby army base lost 2 nuclear bombs that fortunately didn't explode. The plane itself suffered a malfunction and crashed and killed all 3 crewmen aboard, and the remnants of the bombs were collected and supposedly buried somewhere behind that gate. So yeah, disaster averted, but it would not have been good. So day 10 was spent in the North Carolina's Outer Banks, which is a beautiful area, but besides the beaches and the dunes, it has a lot of very important historical places. So my first stop of the day was after driving on a couple of bridges to Roanoke Island. And there I visited the Fort Raleigh National Historical Site. So a full 50 years before the famous Mayflower made its voyage across the Atlantic, the English founded a colony here. And it took off pretty successfully, but then when they came back to visit it a couple of years later, the colony completely disappeared. The buildings, the colonists, there was nothing left behind. And up until this day, the mystery of the lost colony has not been solved. During the Civil War, after the Battle of Roanoke, the Union forces captured all of the Outer Banks, and Roanoke Island became a refuge for slaves trying to flee, and the place where the first colony for the freedmen was founded. And the saying went, if you made it to Roanoke Island, you made it to freedom. And another important thing that happened on Roanoke Island is Reginald Fessenden. In 1901, from his lab on the nearby town of Manteo, he was the first one to transmit a human voice over radio waves. Next stop in that little town of Manteo to see something called the Mother Vine. Supposedly, it's the oldest grapevine in America, rumored to be over 400 years old, and it sits in the front yard of a private house. When the people bought this property, the vine took up 2 acres and they trimmed it, but they're taking very good care of it. And they even paved a little parking lot in front of their house so that the visitors can come and park and enjoy the view. And after a short visit to the beach and a very enjoyable hike through Jockey's Head State Park, the home of the tallest living sand dune system along the Atlantic coast, and a delicious lunch of soft-shell crab, I got to my main destination of the day, one of the few places on this planet where the history of the world was really changed. And that place is Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, where in December 1903, the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, first flew in an airplane. So the memorial actually consists of a few parts. There is the field itself over which they flew, and there is a marker where each one of the 4 flights they took that day landed. And then there is a museum building itself, and then there is the Kill Devil Hill with a stunning memorial for them. And I was just so excited to be there, so forgive me if I go into too much detail. So the field itself, there are the rails along which the plane was pushed to give it speed to take off, and then the markers for the flight. The first two lasted 12 seconds, 120 feet, 175 feet. The third one lasted 15 seconds and went as far as 200 feet, and then the one that actually made history, 870 feet and 59 seconds. In the museum building, it was really cool to see the full-size replica of the plane and the copy of the patent that they filed for invention of the flying machine, and also their family history. And it was fascinating to learn that actually it was the women in the family who were college educated and none of the men were. And then there is the monument on the hill with the beautiful views of the ocean and the very touching inscription, in commemoration of the conquest of the air by the brothers Wilbur and Orville Wright, conceived by genius, achieved by dauntless resolution and unconquerable faith. And another great thing on the territory of the memorial is the sculpture that depicts that scene in the famous photograph of the first flight. You have the plane, you have Wilbur lying down there, holding on for dear life, piloting it, and you have the assistants and friends from the nearby Coast Guard station that always came out to help the brothers push the plane and assist with whatever else was needing, and they are the ones who just pushed it down the rail, and Orville is also standing among them, and there is a Coast Guardman who is taking the picture, and it's just an awesome sculpture, such a pleasure to see it. So yes, that first flight really did change history, and it deserves the beautiful memorial. And in the spirit, really not far from there, there's another memorial, this time celebrating a century of flight. So it's this big circle with stone pillars etched with significant names and dates in the history of aviation and in the history of space exploration. And it was really nice to walk around there and read the descriptions and see some familiar faces. And my last stop of the day was on Corolla Island, where I wanted to see the historical Currituck Beach lighthouse. But by the time I got there, it was already getting late, so the lighthouse was closed and all I could do was enjoy it from the outside. So that leaves two things undone on Corolla Island: the lighthouse and to see the Mustangs. Yes, Corolla Island is a home to a few hundred wild horses that were brought there by the Spanish back in the 16th century, and over hundreds of years became their own species called the banker horse. But in order to see them, you need to take an organized tour. So, Outer Banks, I will be back.